Well, hello and welcome to a very, very fabulous evening, a very big conversation tonight, as I've already informed you. Well, my guest tonight is an athlete and an astute athlete and a politician. Well, he represented and performed at the 5th Paratrap Grand Prix in Milan in 2015. This astounding sportsman is also a member of the Ghana National Rifle Association. He's a die-hard Nkrumahist. He's been involved in politics for years, serving his party on all various levels, stood for elections to represent in his constituency as an MP. He's a lawyer, both at the English Inner Temple and the Ghanaian Bar. He's also a writer, publisher, and a businessman. But after an accident one night in Accra on his return home overseeing his business at a nightclub he owned, he lost his ability to walk. He didn't give up. He turned this major infraction on his life into an enormous ambition. He wants to be president of the Republic of Ghana. And already he's made history by becoming the first ever African Ghanaian physically challenged to be a presidential aspirant. Ivor Kwabena speaks his mind. He trounced his closest contender, the daughter of the founder of the CPP, with 1,288 votes to become the aspiring president for the party. He is with me tonight in a tell-it-all conversation. This is PM Express. My name is Anan Sakwal, the fourth Chief of Akwemwe Dumasa, and also your host. When we come back, he's going to say it all. Don't move. Well, hello and welcome back. Thank you for staying, and let's give a big traditional welcome to Ivor Kwabena Greenstreet. Ivor, you're welcome.
Well, great to be on the show.
Now the tradition here is we find Amban Temunsa. So for all first-time guests, we find them a bottle of gin, my viewers and I. But we'll waive you. We'll waive you.
Okay,
there are certain guests that we waive you, so
yes,
we're giving you a waiver.
Yes, wonderful to be here. Great pleasure.
Thank you so much. But before I even go there, the 5th Paratrap Grand Prix in Milan, what does it entail? Because, it sounds very...
Well, we are called the Black Snipers.
Okay.
We have the Black Stars, the Black Queens, and all our various teams. But those who shoot for Ghana come under the name Black Snipers. I'm not sure whether anybody wishes to be called a sniper, but that is what we are called.
I see.
And, there are a number of shooting disciplines.
Sure.
Some involve the pistol, some involve the rifle, some are the shotgun, some are the air pistol. So this particular competition at which I represented Ghana, the Black Snipers, was an international competition that took place in Milan with the shotgun. Now, it's a particular...
Shoot clay pigeons?
Yes, you shoot clay pigeons. So there are about 10 people, you're lined up, 2 in each slot. You're lined up with your gun, with your shotgun, double-barreled, and then there's a machine, below in the form of a bunker, which then shoots off these targets, clay pigeons, at different angles, and then you move from slot to slot, after having shot, yes. Well, I shot some of them. I didn't shoot enough of them to win, but we did our best.
No, you must have, because it's not a very Ghanaian sport, is it?
Okay, well, there are quite a number of Ghanaians who do it, and and other Ghanaians who represent the nation at international competitions, Commonwealth, Olympics, and things like that. But obviously, it is not like, let's say, soccer, or one of the main sports. But it's good for concentration, good for hand-eye coordination. I mean, I enjoy it. I would recommend it to
all those
so
who
many
are
people
watching
to
out
do.
there, beware, he can shoot you.
In fact, we're from a visit to the Central region today. Gomwa East, we went to Gomwa East, Gomwa Central, and Agona East constituencies.
Okay.
And on my way back, I was telling the police officer in the vehicle that she needed to come to the range to do some training, you know, with I'd give her a special weapon called a Beretta. They're very good, very accurate. But you should come along one of these days and try.
I wouldn't mind, you know. I wouldn't mind. It sounds like fun.
Yes.
I wouldn't mind at all.
And obviously, to represent your nation at any level, whether winning or losing, is a great privilege and an honor. And I was the only Ghanaian there. And met lots of interesting people from around the world. And I think, God willing, if I'm able to find the time in the future, I'll try and spend a lot more time getting better at the discipline to see whether I can get to go to the Olympics. Where's the next Olympics? I think that's in Tokyo. I think in Tokyo, yes.
Well, you're the only president representing then.
Well, I'm glad you know that we're going to Flagstaff House.
You're the only president representing.
Yes. And coming back with a medal. Yes.
Well, that's interesting.
I certainly hope that happens. So, I mean, it is shooting and when I get a chance, and swimming. Those are the sports that I enjoy. Okay. I mean, you mentioned the wheelchair in your introduction. So for me now, swimming is when I'm free of the wheelchair, you know, because I'm in the water and I get to swim up and down. Good for the cardio, good for plenty of oxygen. You know, swimming is one of the best exercises because it's not weight bearing. So you're not pushing weights and you're not jogging or jarring your joints.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Use almost all your muscles.
Very, very good discipline, even not as a sport, but just for exercise.
Yeah.
And so...
You a good swimmer?
Yes. I wouldn't say I'm fantastic, but I'm good. I swim for about 30 minutes 3 times a week. Okay. So it's what keeps me strong for the campaign. You know, it's this campaign, it requires some endurance, especially for us. You know, we don't go for the big crowd scenarios. So we go literally from constituency to constituency. So we could do about 4 or 5 constituencies per day. And as you now know, there are 50 days, is it 50 days left or 49 days left?
49 days, yeah.
So even if you take 40 days and you're doing 5 constituencies a day, that's 200 constituencies, relentlessly, you know, without stopping. So that enables us to hold a program, let's say at the lorry park or the marketplace, and we get to directly engage with the community and one-on-one get to know their problems, tell them about our solutions, and then also hope that enables us to get greater loyalty or vote by the message that we have from them. So, you know,
he's already answered question 11, right?
But I'll come back and answer that.
But let me find out, what motivated you to get into politics? I mean, this is, you sit back and it's a nasty game. It's become for the shameless opportunist, will say anything, do anything to grab hold of power, and they lock this space that, you know, there's no room for good people.
Very, very difficult, you know, and the longer you are in it, the more, you know, you see the kind of things you're referring to, especially with people who have, you know, worked hard over a period of time to build up their, you know, integrity or capacity, and are in the public sphere, and then, you know, before you can say Jack, as they say, you are being accused of something, and you are being tried and indicted, you know, and found guilty on a radio somewhere, you know, and you find yourself either deciding to, have a thick skin and forget about it, or to retaliate. And so I think that's the unfortunate thing about the space at the moment. I think, as you have rightly said, it has become so immersed in this polarization and a lot of this wrangling and pettiness that, you know, you're quite right. And many a times you'd think, hey, what is it that I'm in? But, you know, I'm driven and have been by a long time of, you know, the desire to be part of, you know, a process, a collective process with others of trying to build a better society for ourselves who are luckier enough to be around now, and then also for our children. And I think it is critical that all, well-meaning Ghanaians, from all walks of life, and gender, should be involved in the governance process to try and ensure that we have the best people possible, whatever their choice of party might be, but people who are there dedicated to the advancement of this nation. And these are the things that have driven me, and I'm sure there are similar things that have driven others, the desire to engage in public service and to try and improve the nature of our society, because we are a wealthy country. Oil, gold, gas, cocoa, timber, bauxite, diamonds, manganese, fertile lands, access to water resources, strong human beings. I think the Almighty God has been very, very graceful and wonderful to this, our beautiful nation. And as I think it behoves on all of us, including you, my brother, who well respected and well known, being a participant in that democratic space, so that we try and improve and do more for this great country of ours. I mean,
How much did your late father-in-law, and for those who don't know, your late father-in-law was Vice President Akka.
Yes.
He was a fine politician, very fine gentleman. Did his political life influence you in any way?
Oh, I wouldn't say so. I grew up as the third child out of 4 of 2 professors at the University of Ghana. And well, they were teachers and then became professors later. And so, there's been so much political activity, especially in our early days at the universities, particularly with all our unfortunate breaks to democratic rule. There was always a lot of activity at university campuses and a lot of consciousness amongst the youth. And when you're on a university campus, there's so many people that you interact with different views, different perspectives.
All the Marxists.
Whether it is, the Edu Bwines or the Professor Kwapongs and all. So I think that was the environment that, made me feel very keen on being part of that sphere of public service, because to be a teacher is to be a public servant, because you're not fantastically well paid, you're not a big businessman, but you gain so much from the environment that you work in and from the pleasure of teaching so many people and the impact you have on their lives. So I think those were the driving forces. But obviously, as you move along, there are great persons like him and others who, you admire from afar. And if you're lucky, you have the opportunity to interact with. And you try and learn from all persons, who hold high office, to try and develop yourself. I mean, one of them who I used to interact with on a regular basis, may he rest in peace, that was the late Justice Daniel Francis Annan, the former Speaker of Parliament. And I remember him once telling me in his office at the Speaker's block in Accra at a point in time, he said, and we were having a chat about politics, and he told me, Ivor, he said, becoming a politician is easy. Staying one is the problem. So, and I think most politicians try to work out ways of staying, as you were saying earlier, in the game. So that is what we've been trying to do with being in the Convention People's Party, and I'm in the party out of sincerity and out of a belief that we, have the right policies, the capacity, the individuals, which can really make a significant difference to the direction of this nation. Like you were saying earlier on, so many people are just jumping on bandwagons because maybe they think they're the larger parties and they're going there for all sorts of other reasons. But I'm committed to being in the party, as you said earlier, where I've been for quite a number of years. And I continue to be happy that that is the decision that I've taken, even though we haven't been in office, but are due to enter office shortly.
I was at your press conference at Alisa.
Okay.
Yeah, so Alisa. Was it your manifesto you launched then, or was it just a
Okay, I don't know. We have so many press conferences. I don't know which one. But I don't think it was a manifesto.
This was when you brought your project about the...
Yes, that was the IEA debate.
Oh,
yes,
the IEA debate. Yes, the IEA debate.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, your manifesto is not out yet.
Well, you know, the kind of manifesto that we have done, which has perhaps meant the reason why we haven't launched it yet. Actually, we've had numerous launches of it at the district level. Because what we decided to do on this occasion was what we have called People's Interactive Manifesto. So rather than just being at our headquarters and saying that, okay, these are our policies on health, on education, on energy, on this, on that, we decided to go to the people, engage them, find out what was really bothering them, what they felt the solutions were. Much in the same way they did with the National Development Planning and, you know, other things that large bodies engage in when they want to get the views of those at the grassroots. So that's what we have done. So the manifesto has been ready for quite a long period of time, and it is should I say, a follow-up from previous manifestos that we've held. So it's not, you know, a rocket science or something glaringly new, apart from some key areas where we're focusing on.
Being that the media particularly is manifesto drank,
yes.
Even though we just want to see, we don't do
so we'll be
doing
a big one, a final climax, should we say, of it shortly. And no doubt, hopefully you'll be able to be present at that and engage us.
So one will say, would it not be too close to time for those who may not have had the opportunity to come to the close meetings to make a decision about it?
Oh, I don't think so. You see, people are fully aware of the principles that the Convention People's Party stand for. We have three main pillars: self-determination, which means that we believe as a nation we have to be more self-reliant. We have to do more with the resources that we have been bequeathed by the Almighty and utilize them for the benefit of the broad mass of people. And then secondly, the other principle is social justice, meaning that this wealth that we have as a country should be spread equally and equitably and accessible to all Ghanaians, whether in Accra or Sandema or Bibiani. And then the third main pillar is Pan-Africanism, where we believe we have to enhance our cooperation with our neighbors and other African countries to try and engage in greater trade and cooperation in the whole spheres of activities. So, you know, these are nothing, should I say, that can be described as a bolt from the blue. And we believe there'll be fully enough time for them to engage with us and know precisely what our agenda is and how we intend to do what is entirely different from what the MPP and the NDC are offering. Because for us, they are entirely the same in terms of their policies. And despite all their mudslinging and their to and fro, the last 24 years should tell any Ghanaian who is discerning, and most Ghanaians are very discerning, that the policies of the NDC and the MPP are almost exactly the same. So anybody who is desirous of seeing a change in his or her personal life has to assume that therefore they have to do something entirely different. And if you go with either the NDC or the MPP, you're doing the same thing. And they have been tried and tested, and I think people have taken their determination of what they've been able to achieve, and we think we can do far better with the resources that we have.
I'm sure if they were here, they would disagree, but let me move
of course. Yeah, of course.
Let me move to one big topic, and that's the economy. The economy has been major, one major topic, especially this season. I mean, number one, what do you find wrong with the economy? And number two, what will the CPP do, to make the economy right, if indeed it's wrong?
Well, clearly the first thing about the economy is, as you're saying, it refers to money, which is the key thing that any individual, family, community, or nation needs to manage if it's going to succeed, either as a nation or in the personal life of an individual. And so what we feel that we're not doing as a nation, and which we would be doing entirely differently, is earning more from what we already have. And let us just take two examples of two key areas. We have, in the extractive sector, we have gold, and of course we have the oil that we recently found. Recently, about a year or two ago, you would have probably remembered that both the NDC and the MPP sat down in Parliament to reduce the amount of taxes and royalties that we pay to Goldfields Ghana. And then you begin to wonder, were we really called Gold Coast once? And how much have we actually benefited from all the gold that's been in our soil all of these years? We're totally opposed to that. We feel we should be earning far more from our gold and renegotiate all of those contracts with these multinationals to insist that we get more from it. Point number one. Therefore what? Generating more money for what? The economy, they refer to. Point number two. Under oil. Recently again, NDC and the MPP quietly have allowed this petroleum law to be passed. The basis of that law is that we will use what's called royalties and taxes under what's called the Ghana hybrid system to collect revenue from that oil sector. Even as a nation, we're not able to collect even taxes from petty traders, let alone huge, large multinationals who have every ability through transfer pricing or all kinds of schemes to reduce their taxation. But, Nana, there is another formula that is being used by progressive African countries in that sector. Nigeria, Angola, Egypt, all of the Libya have been using this formula. They don't use the royalty taxes system. They use a formula called the production sharing formula. What is the production sharing formula? It is rather like a farmer who owns a large piece of land and somebody says, okay, I want to grow corn on your land. The farmer agrees, and what they do is share from the proceeds of the corn that is grown on that land.
You get 3 bags, you give me 1 bag.
Of course. Now, okay, let me tell you, for the royalty tax system, between the years 2010 to 2015, as a nation, we earned $3 billion US, representing 19% or thereabouts of the entire total output. If we had been adopting the production sharing formula between the years 2010 to 2015, we would have earned $9 billion US, represent about 60% of the total output. Therefore, we would have earned $6 billion more as a nation from what is in our own soil and what is rightfully ours and what we as a nation should be trying to claim more of for our citizens.
Is the fault wrong negotiations, or is the fault that those coming in?
And once again, luckily they're not here to disagree, But and I go back, I don't want to go back to the days of Kwame Nkrumah, but just before he was overthrown, for goodness sake, we were 95% there of building our gold refinery, in Takwa, okay? So we even built Tema Oil Refinery at that time with this expansive and great vision that leader had. And so it tells you that it's about leadership, it's about courage, it's about determination. By the moment you find our legislature quite divided on many issues, you don't see them coming together. And I feel that law was even sneaked in quietly whilst we have other important laws which have taken so long to pass, right to information and dealing with so many issues. But this one quickly, on the ground, it was passed, even though you could see from the number of amendments that the MPs in Parliament brought up over a period of time, in their hearts, they know that bill is not right. So, in our manifesto, one of the key planks is that we would either repeal, review, renegotiate those laws, okay, to ensure that as a nation we earn more. Because if we
sometimes locked into these big multinational contracts where
of course.
It costs you more to repeal than actually just abide by it.
Well, those are the key things we have to decide as a nation. But I think if we come together, united in purpose, that we all agree that this is what we want to do, then surely that has got to be far better than loans, and more loans, or IMF, World Bank dictates, or having to struggle to pay our nurses what they deserve, our teachers what they deserve, provide the kind of educational facilities and opportunities for our people that they deserve. That means that we have to struggle, that we have to be courageous. Nana, courage is the first of all human qualities. And the reason why courage is the first of all human qualities is because courage is the one quality that guarantees all other qualities. And therefore, we have to be courageous. Even if you, by courage, are able to get an additional 5%, an additional 10%, additional 20%, additional 30%, it's far better than sitting down and saying, oh, well, you know, we're up against these forces, or we can't cope, okay, so let's just leave it as it is, you know. Because, you know, nobody will be happy with the situation that we find ourselves in, where we're struggling to make ends meet. That's why governors are having all these difficulties all the time with this strike or this complaint or that complaint or this problem or that problem. I mean, that's not going to be any different with the NPP, because if the NPP came into office, which is why we're not in favor of our Rise for Change, we're in favor of our change, which is a Sankofa change, to go back and pick those values and those principles which will give us different results as a nation. So, you know, so that is the first key thing about dealing with your question, the economy. You have to work out, how are you going to generate additional resources? This is one way we believe, and which is what we are fighting for, that we can do it. But at the same time, too, you also have to deal with a lot of money that's going into wastage through corruption and wastage at all our ministries, departments, and agencies that have been going on and recognized and accepted by all for a long period of time. So those are also things that we have to, and we have stated we would tackle head on to try and ensure. So those are some of the key things. And you see, another thing that we have found over the years that they've been doing is this whole issue of inflation targeting. And you know, yes, you know, having stability is important. We're not against stabilization, and you know, we would all wish the inflation rate to be low because of the effect it has on, you know, the ordinary person's purchasing power and their pockets. But at the same time, what is the point of having growth, or what is the point of having, you know, a situation whereby all we do is have more and more austerity, more and more hardships, more and more taxes placed on the ordinary Ghanaian, when we're not having the key thing which has to be parts of growth, inclusive growth, which is employment growth.
Well, let me go back to the economy thing. You know, you stated really nicely, look, let's earn more from what we
yes,
already
and that's
getting.
one thing amongst so many things we would have to do, of course.
Yeah. Now, to do that, you have to get into government. Now, the...
Well, you know, I'm coming for my donation this evening. You know, we need money for the campaign. So I'm expecting you to, you know, yes, because I know where your heart lies. I've been studying you for quite some time. And I know that, number one, at least in terms of one of the key things, you know, Convention People's Party represents and has a foundation of, the African personality. And you all know what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah represents in that respect. And I know what you know, I've been listening to your comments over a long period of time in that regard. And so, you know, and that means looking within for your solutions, not always looking far into the distance where it's cloudy and nebulous, thinking the answer will come from there, but the answer is right here.
Very good. So my next question then is, the EC, fortunately or unfortunately, just called for presidential aspirants, which you're part. There are so many people...
I would say unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Let's be fair to our colleagues.
Okay, so unfortunately. Now, some of these unfortunate individuals broke away from the CPP.
Yes.
Now, would you consider a merger with these unfortunate souls? And if you were, are you willing to say, listen, for the Pan-African spirit, for the interest of Ghana, you know what? You take the lead, I'll back you.
You know, I think that the first thing that I would have to say is that when I heard the news that so many, you know, hardworking, dedicated people who represent parties and themselves as individuals in their desire to serve the nation, just like myself and others, were, you know, not allowed to participate in the process through differing reasons according to, you know, what we have heard. I don't know the details of whether clerical errors or fraudulence and signatures and double signatures. I have to say I felt so bad about it because, you know, I've known some of them for quite some time. And I know how I would have felt, you know, if it had been me. And if your neighbor's house is on fire, I don't think you say, okay, I'm okay, and therefore you know, there by the grace of God go I. Because even the first thing, not to digress, the first issue that we had with it was the size of these fees we had to pay. You know, and particularly the lack of notice and the speed with which it jumped. Because you remember 2008, to be a parliamentary candidate, 500 Ghana cedis. 2012, 1,000 Ghana cedis. So even that was a 100% jump. So we were thinking in our own internal budget, okay, maybe another 100% jump. So 2,000 per parliamentary candidate. Just imagine how we felt when it went straight to 10,000. So we were, you know, entirely...
How many parliamentary candidates?
222.
Whoa.
200, and it was reduced. I had 260 candidates. Because God being so good, on this particular occasion, the CPP, we held our Congress in January. And so already by February, March, we had toured the nation, practically every constituency. And so we had a number of candidates who were strong, and we started getting them March, April, getting them in. But the ones which came of recent date who were a bit weaker, we had to plead with them to cut it down, because otherwise it would eat into remaining funds that we're trying to raise for the rest of the campaign. And so, as you rightly said, certainly the People's National Convention has stated its commitment to being Nkrumahist. The PPP, led by Dr. Pakwesi Indom, who was formerly with us, I think they have been more clear to state that they are not Nkrumahist, but clearly they broke away. So there must be some parts of them that still have, you know, a connection with us. And we were in discussions even before, earlier in the year, about, you know, how we could all, you know, coalesce, you know, as it were, even though that didn't materialize. But in the current situation we find ourselves in, it is for me to even remotely consider, or to say now, that I would go to my father, Dr. Edwin Mahama, or Bernard Mona, or to my brother Henry Latte, or to Dr. Indum, or these, to me, so soon, and I think they've been so hurt to have spent all this money and done all this work and have all this desire to good things for the country, you know, taken away from them. It is almost like me going to you know, the house of somebody who has just lost their husband, and immediately the first day I start telling her that, you know, so you know, yes, I think let them also exhaust these court matters they've taken. You know, we don't know which way it's going to go.
But are they welcome to come if they want to?
Of course, I think we're all Ghanaians. But just because we're all coming together...
The issues will be ego and who then leads. I mean, who's going to drop their ego?
Well, I am ready to be part of a collective body of people, and it doesn't have to be either at the head, you know. I mean, I think anybody who is ever at the head is merely a first among equals, in any case. For me, the important thing is that we all agree on what the medicine is that we want to give to the state, to Ghana, to make the patient better.
That's a very modest statement.
Well, I have to be modest. I'm on, you know, my job, you know. But it doesn't mean that I don't think that I'm still the man. Of course. You know, you know. But in this life, you have to learn. It's not every day you're going to get your way. You know, it's not every day you're going to win. And if one door closes, God always opens another door. You know, and there are always opportunities to serve and to be part of something bigger and better than yourself. And it's always better to not be a big fish in a small pond. You want to be part of something larger and better that's more capable of, you know, achieving the desired set of goals. And that requires compromises. These things don't happen without compromises, without ceding ground, and without recognizing that to do that, you know, that is the only way you'll be able to gel as a group. And for me, I believe that is why the CPP, with its background, its achievements in the past, and what it represents in the hearts and minds of the Ghanaian, even though maybe of recent past they haven't voted that way, wherever we go, even today, when the chiefs were speaking, they talked about what even CPP was able to do at that time in that specific locality. So it is in the hearts and the minds of the people. And so how we can make it applicable to the 21st century with real dynamic solutions that can improve the lives of people.
Does reality matter in politics? Because I ask this question because sometimes you see certain aspirants, far, far smaller. Sometimes you don't even know them. You practically have to ask, who is this? And they say, oh, he's also running for, oh, really? And he say, listen, I'm winning one touch. I'm winning one touch. CPP, was a big giant once upon a time. For one reason or the other, became a sleeping giant. Yes. You sort of rekindled something and it's coming up. Yeah. But Ghana is so polarized in MPP, NDC. Yes, there may be some who are looking for that third force. Yes. You have preached and preached and preached for a third force. Yes. Is your message saying that, listen, give me enough votes to keep these two in check? Or is your message saying, look, give me enough vote to go ahead? Because it should be so difficult to get enough vote, 50 plus 1, and beat MPP and DC. Are you going to go for like 10%?
But you'll be surprised. I mean, look at what happened in Benin, recently when an independent candidate was able to win the election. Certainly, wherever we go, as politicians.
But the Ghanaian is a hypocrite.
Oh, why are you saying they're not as bad as
these
that?
delegates. I mean, they will take the money.
As for delegates within the party rank and file, that's different. That one I'll accept. But the ordinary Ghanaian that we see moving around really want leaders, genuine leaders, who genuinely want to sacrifice and serve them and to try and improve their lot.
But the fear is that if I give you my vote, I have wasted it.
Yes, but what they're beginning to realize now, which is why I say for us the soil is very fertile, is that wherever we go, what they're telling us now is that, you know what, actually, voting NDC has been a wasted vote. Voting NPP in the past has been a wasted vote. Because all along, for 24 years, almost 1/4 of a century, they've been coming with us with the same promises, with the same broken promises and failing to deliver on improving our lives, that actually this time what we're going to do is we're going to take the money, we're going to take the t-shirts, we're going to, whatever they think they can come and give us to play games with us, we'll take it. But we know where we're going to go. And we are confident that therefore, come December the 7th, the result will be entirely different. How much we'll be able to achieve, the same way before, the Congress has elected the candidates, we quietly went to go and do our work. The same way this time we'll quietly go and do our work. Because in the same way that you refer to this whole, two-party kind of perception, there's a vast, there are tentacles stretched into the media as well, okay? With lots of, hands all over different stations. Let me take a quick break here, because I want us to really deal with the media and find out what this Ivor's personal perspective of what the media space is like this political season. So don't move, we're coming back. Well, thank you very much for staying tuned and talking to Ivor Greenstreet, presidential aspirant for the CPP. And I have a couple of messages for him. Comrade Greenstreet is undoubtedly such a fine and apt brain. Don't bring the but. No buts in this sentence.
Okay, well, he's got loads of great ideas. Fortunately or unfortunately, the current administration under His Excellency John Mahama has been don't call my WhatsApp number, has been the resurrection of some of the many companies that the CPP built but collapsed. The dream of Osagyefo is already being seen live under the NDC. At least a ministerial position to tap into his ideas would do in a Mahama's second 4-year term. Change is happening from Barry Makubaji in Genesis. It is already giving you. That's cheeky, isn't it? Yes. That's cheeky. Hold on. This one says, hello, Ivor. Would you have accepted the fourth gift if you were the president? We'll come to that.
The answer is no.
We'll come to the fourth gift business. Yeah. But keep your messages coming 05800 000 056 800 000. Media. What do you think about the media? Probably not the CPP's position.
Joy FM accepted. Since I'm here in your studio.
You see?
Yes. Well, as I was saying, that is why the nature of the campaign that we have been running has been, a direct one-on-one interaction, town to town, constituency to constituency, to engage with the people. Because as it is not just with Ghana, but all over the world, the media, I don't know whether to use the word infiltrated or taken over, but they have their positions,
so
which they're
this
entitled
number
to.
again. It's 0560 800 000. 0560 800 000. Send your questions in. He's not got one question. He's not going to accept the Ford gift, but we'll still get a little bit more on the Ford business.
Not that I've been offered one. I don't think I will be offered one either. And so, therefore, it is difficult for us sometimes to be heard in the way that we wish to be heard on matters of importance and significance, even though during this election period there's clearly added avenues for us to have our policies heard. But one of the unfortunate things which I think we alluded to earlier, and I think you even talked about it, is the extent of rancor, divisiveness, vindictiveness, insults that permeate our airwaves, which have to a certain extent poisoned the environment. And what it does, it means a lot of good people who ordinarily might have entered the fray feel compelled to stay away because of what might happen to them, should they step forward. And therefore we are condemned sometimes to having, a lot of inverted commas, mediocre or not as high level as we would have wished. But I certainly don't think all is lost. And I think, on the other hand, the media are also doing a fantastic job and they're critical to democracy and the vibrancy of our democratic space and need to be encouraged. So it's about how to tweak it, what to do to try and, harness the best bits about it and rather push them forward, and hopefully that will overshadow the negative aspects, and then we can, move forward in a positive light.
I thought politics, there's a huge percentage of politics that's based on perception.
Yes.
Very huge. You just perceive something, you heard something, you read something, and you don't get opportunity to meet the person, to clarify. So, well, that is what it is. Now, the perception out there is that, you're more leaning towards the NDC. Samia has accused you, there's this, they are funding your party, or you're in bed with them. Where from this story? And, they say there's no smoke without fire. So.
Yes, well, you see, it also is very convenient for those forces which are scared about our change agenda affecting their change agenda to try and ensure that perception persists. Because I think I've been very critical of the NDC on numerous fronts, but they would not wish to shine a light on that. They would wish to shine a light perhaps in other areas. And so I think you might have even remembered we were in Kumasi, continuous dumso, corruption from top to bottom, left to right, inside out, and very direct. But I'm not going to go and mention somebody's name and say you are corrupt, because then I'm falling into the same kind of activities that we have just been critical of the media space for and the political space for. So I think that what we are very convinced about and what we have been telling Ghanaians, and what I'll repeat here tonight, is that we do not believe the NDC government under the leadership of John Dramani Mahama deserve another term. But we certainly, under no circumstances, do we think by any remote stretch of the imagination that the persons and a group of persons to replace them are the MPP, because they're going to come and implement the same policies that the NDC are implementing. And those same policies are going to give us the same results in our daily lives, which we're all complaining about, which is why we want the NDC out. So therefore, we have to choose something different. And now we have been repeating this on a continuous basis. And I don't see how, if I'm being funded or I'm leaning in that direction, I can continue to repeat these things, but people will not want to hear it. And so I think I'll continue to repeat it. And the more I repeat it, perhaps I'm supposed to use harsh words. I don't know whether I'm supposed to use verbal insults against the NDC or the president for people to be satisfied that we are in an independent party or an independent course. Otherwise, why would we be fielding 222 candidates nationwide? Why would we be working morning to night with these candidates in the field, utilizing hard-earned money that has been raised from the rank and file and well-wishers of the party to try and prosecute the agenda of the Convention People's Party? And why would it even inure to the benefit of others to fund us to attack them? And that is what I don't quite understand, that logic. So therefore, I would urge people to entirely take that perception and thought processes out of their mind altogether. There's no substance to it. There's no foundation to it. It is entirely untrue, and it is not the case whatsoever. And so for me, I therefore am satisfied with what we are doing under the leadership of Professor Daly, with the vice presidential candidate who you might know, Nana Gabi Insia Nketia, a very strong, dynamic individual, very knowledgeable about what the ordinary Ghanaian goes through and the solutions to his...
Briefly on your candidate, it was quite of a shocker when he came. You know, everybody was thinking, how much more is he going to bring on board? I'll just give you 1 minute on it, and then you move on to what's the CPP's take on ECG. So your vice presidential candidate, I mean, is he going to bring anything on board?
Well, definitely. Do you see any chairman of a party or a presidential candidate or vice presidential candidate from Ashanti or Bron? You don't. I think they've been entirely ignored and marginalized as critical regions of this nation. And he has vast experience both in private business, both in government, you know, under the 8 years of President Kufuor, as a former ambassador and as somebody who, you know, is very, very knowledgeable. And he has the necessary kind of experience which, you know, I felt I needed. And I felt we in the Convention People's Party are looking for people from the NDC. We are looking at people from the NPP. We're not looking for people from outer space to come and vote for us. And therefore, for us, it was a strategic decision. And I was humbled by his, you know, agreement to come and work with myself and the party to prosecute this agenda.
CPP's position on the sale or, you know, decommissioning of the ECG?
Opposed to it. We believe that what should happen is that rather the government should be paying them the monies that are owed to them and allow them, once in the possession of those funds, to carry out the kinds of operations that we need. But you know, I don't know whether you remember or have heard that the CPP, we have a medium to short-term solution to the country's chronic energy deficit. And I'd like to take the opportunity just to briefly share it with you. I know that our time is short. Yeah. As you're aware, the Earth itself, or the globe, is, you know, a sphere. It's a round ball. And as you know, all over the Earth there is wind. And the reason why there is wind all over the Earth, because as you know, the Earth doesn't sit like this. It sits on an axis. It tilts. And whilst on its axis, it's revolving at a speed of 1,040 miles an hour. We only don't feel it because of gravity. And whilst revolving on its axis at 1,040 miles per hour, it is also orbiting the sun at 67,000 miles per hour. That is why there's wind all over the surface of this earth. But God has bequeathed something to Ghana which is even greater. And that is the fact that from the north all the way to Ada, along the Volta River, we have a trough. And that trough has created a wind corridor for 1,000 kilometers. And the reason why we know it's a wind corridor, apart from studies that have been conducted by one of Ghana's and CPP's most foremost engineers, Robert Wood, is that even those people who live in those areas will tell you that there are continuous tidal waves which take place there, and people put large stones on their roofs to stop the wind blowing them off. Now we intend, along the entirety of that 1,000-kilometer stretch, to install wind turbines at 300 meters triangular, 9,900 of them, generating 29,800 megawatts of power. And if we reduce the wind outage along the entirety of that stretch to 66%, Ghana should be able to produce 9,000 megawatts of energy free at all times. And we would reactivate the Aboso glass factory in Takwa. And as you know, fiberglass is made from molten glass. And therefore, that would be supplying what we needed in terms of the raw material for all of those wind turbines along that stretch. And this is not something crazy. In the United States of America, by the year 2030, they want their energy to have a wind mix of at least 20%. They have a 1,000 hectare wind park in South Wyoming. South Korea wants 2.4 gigawatts of wind power. Now, we must take advantage of this free gift of nature that God has given us. But it requires us to have courage as a nation, courage as leadership, to do the right things, utilizing what God has bequeathed us for the benefit of the entire people of this country. And if we're able to do that, we would have not only power available for ourselves, but enough left over for sale to our neighbors. These are critical things the Convention People's Party is offering the people of Ghana, and we would urge them that now is the time for them to be brave and to leave the MPP and the NDC. Yes, they've done their best. We're not going to insult anybody or say anything bad, but to choose and chart a different course for themselves and for this nation through the vehicle of the party that brought political independence and that is now going to bring them economic independence. Because our challenge now is how to be more economically independent and not entirely exist in some form of slavery, whether it is in the economic sphere, whether it is the cultural sphere, whether it is the sporting sphere, in all our spheres. We have to restore our dignity. Ghana and Africa must restore her dignity. A nation, an individual without dignity is susceptible to abuse and corruption. So we have to resist all negative challenges stubbornly. Our response has to be rapid yet flexible. Our determination must be unwavering. Our resolve must be entirely resolute. Look, if China was able to take the world by storm, Ghana and Africa can take the world by tsunami.
We just have to bring our minds to it. Well, this is an interesting one. Evening, I'm glad to watch my brother on PM Express for outlining his plans towards betterment of our dear country, James Tay from Keta. How do we support his campaign? Which means, how can we support his campaign? Well,
I don't know where he is.
He's in Keta.
He's in Keta. Okay,
Yeah.
we were recently in Keta some 3 weeks ago. I'll take his number after this program, and I'll link up with him. But we have constituency executives there. We have regional executives there. I don't need to make contact with them, but I'll take your number and I'll give you a call.
And this one said, Anna, please help me ask the CPP flag bearer are they that broke? CPP are not making themselves vibrant. I don't see them on the ground. He should thank God if they get more votes than the spoiled ballots. Favor from Spintex.
Spintex, okay. Well, I'm surprised he's saying that. We're very vibrant, we're very active, but we would do more. It's about timing, it's about strategy. I think when you have limited funds, even in your own household, you work out the best ways of utilizing them. But I can assure him that between now and the end of November, the entire country, including Spintex, will be turned green. It will be green. It will be green. It will be green all the way, and he will see the visibility. And we hope that, having listened to me this evening and listened to my colleagues on other fora, that we would urge him not to vote just on whether he sees a flag or a billboard or a poster, but vote on what drives him as an individual in terms of his principles and ideas, and what convinces him that would make his life better.
Another perception that you probably have to refute is on some of the WikiLeaks lines. It was said that you were talking to people who were related to the CIA, so believe that you probably passing on information to CIA or talking to them.
Well,
and that was in WikiLeaks.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, as General Secretary, which I was for 2 consecutive terms, you are always engaging a whole host of personalities, whether local or foreign. And foreign embassies will come to you and interview. So, Mr. Greenstreet, what is your view on this? What is CPP's view on that? What is your perspective of this, or what is your perspective of that? And that WikiLeaks, if anybody wants to wish to go and look at it, was just an occasion when we were interviewed, or I was interviewed on behalf of the party, not on behalf of myself, on my perception on the election at that time, which direction the party was going in. And at some point in time later, it came out into this document that was leaked, but there was nothing particularly fantastic or strange or anything about it in terms of leakage of any particular state secrets or party secrets or perspectives. I think it's just something that is just one of those things just in the air.
Well, I'm going to give you your last word. So let me just tell viewers that if you want a nice shirt like what I'm wearing, you give Tantis Fashion a call. They are on 024-366-2001. 024-366-2001, just by Nyaho Clinic at the airport. Give them a call, order yourself a nice shirt. But it's been wonderful. Tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again, but I need to give the last word to our guest.
Well, my last word to yourself and to your guests is that I would urge Ghanaians, let us be courageous as a nation. As I mentioned earlier, courage is the first of all human qualities. It's the first of all human qualities because it is the one quality that guarantees all others. And I believe that if we are courageous and do the things that the CPP is proposing, especially in the area of earning more from our natural resources, we can earn so much more from the nation without having to take all of these loans. If we manage and reduce the extent of corruption, become more efficient, we believe that Convention People's Party is the only party that can unite this nation, bring all factions together. We don't believe in tribal world banks. Our world banks are values, world banks of truth, hope, justice, and opportunity. So we would urge the people of Ghana to take a different stance as we approach this election and to leave these two other parties who rather represent vindictiveness, rancor, divisiveness, hatred, arguments, and who have polluted our very space, but move towards a situation where we have light and love in this our beautiful nation that God has bequeathed us.
Well, on that green note, on that very green note, I'd say thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. It's Green Street, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
You made me rap.